Welcome to Tech Talk with RNE Automated. I'm your host, Jordan Dieterle. Join us as we dive into the world of automation and manufacturing, bringing you expert insights from industrial professionals and business leaders. Whether you're a business owner, engineer, or simply passionate about technology, this podcast is your go-to source for the latest trends and innovations in the field. Welcome, everybody, to Tech Talk with RNE Automated. I'm your host, Jordan Dieterle. Today, I have a guest here that is very exciting for me to host. They say it is Danny Jarecki, aka Danny J. He is the owner of RNE Automated. I'm excited to have him on. To basically explain, what he has done to build a powerhouse RNE Automated. Danny, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Jordan. I'm pleasure doing this interview with you. Go ahead and get started. Ask me what you'd like to ask.
So how did you start with RNE and creating building RNE how it is today from, basically 12 employees to over 850 now? I'm curious how that story is. And I want to, get our listeners involved to hear the story, because it's very intriguing, in the 25 years that RNE's been in business. I want to see what your thoughts and how you envisioned it, and the struggles that you had when you were building this, from, 12 to, basically now.
So the reality is, when I started the company, I was working at Ford Motor Company prior, and we were working quite a few hours. We were doing 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And, I kind of felt like, for that kind of work, I could go out there and actually do that type of work on my own. So it was actually just two of us that started in the beginning. And from that point, we just were more or less contracting ourselves out. In all honesty, in the beginning, we were just worried about surviving more than anything. So we struggled to obviously find work. We just had our reputation out there. And the two of us, we did a pretty good job, secured some pretty good contracts right out of the gate, and started from there. So in the beginning, there wasn't even 12. There was only two of us, and we went quite a long time without paychecks as well. So
yeah, no, that's typically how entrepreneurship goes, right? You start off like no paycheck, and then grow continue to grow, and build it out as you go. So basically, the struggles in the early days of building RNE was just getting the job done, and getting funding to grow RNE. Is that kind of how what you're saying is? It was just more of once you got a contract, you guys had to go do the work yourself.
Yeah, so that was exactly it. So we would get the contract. Our first contract was actually with a company called Detroit Center Tools, who's no longer around, unfortunately, but. And on top of that, we had to get laptops to actually do the work. And at that time, laptops were really expensive. So Ken DeYonker, who was my partner at the time, we actually had to go get our first loan for about $4,000 just to buy laptop and software. And that was scary in itself, right? Because we didn't know if we had enough in the job. And of course, you had to wait 3 months to get paid after the job was done. So that was the difficult part. But once the ball started rolling, Detroit Center's Tool got us into Ford Motor Company. Ford Motor Company then kept contracting us, and as we started doing more and more of that, obviously we got to know some other people in the industry. Picked up a couple robot programmers who felt like they would like to do the independent type stuff, so they joined our team, and lo and behold, like you said, we got up to 12 people, and not only were we just working, we were finding the work, we were doing the financing and everything above. So yeah, it was challenging in the beginning, but exciting, very exciting.
Yeah. So when you got to 12 people, you started to kind of grow, and it was okay, where did you have to take a step back and say, okay, I need to go to the management side of managing, the people and growing the business, with the sales side? Where was that step for you, and how was that transition for you? Because obviously that was a step for me as well, right? So I'm curious to say how you took that as well.
So once we got to around 12 people, we brought another gentleman in who actually had some more management skills, and until the point we got to about 30 people, we started pulling ourselves out a little bit and started doing some of the managing. But for the first 4 to 5 years, we were all on the road. So you just literally had to do everything on the road, all the invoicing, everything, the payroll, and it was literally airport to airport.
Okay. So basically say just being on the road doing whatever's needed to basically fill the customer's needs, which seems to be typical. Let's say that's typically how I always approach it. Say every customer that I've always been on with RNE as well. So that's exciting to see that, hey, you did it too, right? So
Yeah.
so I guess what is the when you were starting that and you kind of grew it, and then when it got to a point that okay you could get step back from the traveling, was that enjoyable for you, or is it still a lot of working hours and still trying to grow and build or was it just bringing on more people to excel RNE even more?
Once you get the wall started, it just kept going, right? Because the more people you brought on, the more payroll you had. So you're always behind the eight ball, right? You could never catch up to the invoicing to the payroll. So that in itself became the management job, right? Chasing down purchase orders, chasing down payments, chasing down, finding out, getting flights for employees. So, at about 30 people, it just literally became a full-time job, trying to place people and trying to continue the reputation going. Obviously you want to have the best of the best, especially with a small business. So a lot of interviewing and so on and so forth. So the first 5 years, I would say that's for young entrepreneurs to make it or break it session. Are you going to continue going through that pain, or are you just going to go back and, work for somebody and let that be someone else's problem?
Yeah. No, I agree. So when Arnie kind of grew to that point, you're like, hey, where did you see the industry going? And I guess where do you see the industry going now? Like with like that automation 4.0, the AI, and what is your projection for that? Here in the future.
So, AI is playing a huge role in everything, right? So I think that we're trying to stay in front of it. And with that, we purchased some of our own AI systems just so that we can start developing with that software. We have one going in our Port Huron facility, and we have two of them actually going in here in our Romeo facility to start doing some experimental work with it. But the AI takes a lot of the on-hands programming out of it, right? It gets a lot of the basics, but you still need the engineers to do the work, right? That never goes away, right? Every environment's different, every situation's different, and that's AI can do a lot, but it can't do everything. Trend wise with the industry, if you stuck just with the automotive, it's always difficult. Automotive seems to have like a 10-year cycle. Every 10 years you hit a really dramatic downfall, right? So you got to start thinking about, how you're going to diversify, how are you going to be able to, to handle these changes and these downturns that come about.
Yeah, I agree. That's a huge thing. The diversification. You actually kind of rolled into the like my next thought process of it. Was how do you see the diversification? Benefiting the business. For R&E, which that's been my big part of helping R&E to try to diversify and develop into new customers and new areas. So yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah, and you've done a great job as well. But as a company, our portfolio, we have over 800 customers, which is phenomenal, I think. And in any typical week, right, we're billing out 70 to 80 different customers per week. So that alone has probably saved R&E multiple times. I think even when 2009 and the situation got real rough for a lot of companies, without that diversification, we probably wouldn't have been able to make it either.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Like when you're trying to diversify, and continue to grow, you got to continue to build customers, to make revenue and everything. So yeah, that makes total sense. So I guess what was the pivotal moment? Where like was it 2000? Like I heard you say 2009 was like a pivotal moment. Was that like the moment where you're like, all right, we need to either grow, or was it just like either we're gonna grow or we're gonna fail, or is it kind of like how was that? Because you kind of explained that like 2009 was a struggle. What was that like there?
So 2009, I think that was probably the most pivotal point for companies that
Mm,
were probably in the 40 to 150 employee range. Um,
mm,
those companies that were strictly automotive, most of them didn't make it, unfortunately. At that time, the banks were raising interest rates pretty high to even the customers that they were keeping. So, um, you know, that's what we had to decide. Were we going to continue on, take on more debt, and look for other diversifications, or were we going to call it in? We chose to grow it. We chose to bring on a mechanical department, a simulation department. We took on a weld engineering department. So now we were diversifying within RNE itself, but also with the customer base that we had.
yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense to say how you diversified and then just continue to grow. That's any entrepreneurs to say, goal is to continue on, whether it's a struggle or not, right? I say I definitely know that feeling. I say it's even like in the plan, I'm always like, hey, I'm gonna continue on no matter what. I say like even if I can't solve it, I'm gonna keep going. So
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so how did you like when you were doing that? Is say how did you continue to like keep talent and find continuous talent? Is say while you were doing it, is say like and
In
growing.
2009, the talent was all there because all these companies were starting to lay people off, and some of them were shutting the business. So the talent part was the easy part. Convincing the bank to continue financing us to grow at that time, that was probably the most struggle.
Hmm,
They kept us on really close tabs about where we're going to be in the next 2, 3, up to 12 weeks. What do we see as far as projections coming?
hmm,
History with Ford Motor Company was really good. Ford was one of the only ones that didn't file bankruptcy at the time out of the domestic OEMs. So when they came out of it, we were probably the busiest we ever were, and luckily we had the talent. So that really pushed us through. And I think that companies who couldn't wait that period, right, that they just didn't make it at that point.
yeah, yeah. They say, and then even they say like keeping the talent after 2009 was that. They say how do you see that? They say because like I've always looked at they say when I came on RNE, they say I loved the saying of it wasn't a top down management company. That was like my hugest influence because they say I'm like I always treated mine. They say when I was on the road like hey I'm running my own little automation company through RNE to help grow.
Yeah.
Right. So that was kind of the way. And, a lot of guys that say that I've brought on, I say, or even, talked to, say they're like, yeah, I kind of treat it like that too. So how do you think that like has played as like a pivotal moment of how you've kept talent is say within Arnie?
I think having the family business helps tremendously. I think that people enjoy the fact that they can call me at any time that they need to. Um, we try to send out a lot of communications to keep things open about what's going on with the company, where the company is going, what we're growing into. Uh, I feel that the employees, and it's with so many, it's not always true, but I feel like the employees always feel they have somebody they can call and talk to, some type of supervisor, some type of management, or some type of technical assistance. Like even though you're out on your own doing your thing, I think they always have a comfort knowing that there's somebody they can call. Or even if they're on a job that they don't necessarily like, they can call somebody and say, "Hey, I'd really like to get off this project and get onto another project." And I think I truly believe that's what helps retain the good talent at R&E.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. Say, I mean, most of the people that I've ever talked to say, I'm like, hey, you can always call me. You say, even if I'm not, even when I was in manager side, I say, I was like, you can call me, I'll help you out. I say, I'll find a way. I'm not afraid to, call and ask. You say that's just the way that I always was. To say so, it seems to work. You say I definitely know what you mean, and it on the R&E side, obviously being an employee for you, I say it's very lucrative in that side. So that kind of leads into hey, with being a leader in the automation space, they say R&E as a whole, they say what do you see as like qualities or like essential for like being a leader in the automation space? What do you see as like being an essential part of that?
So you need to know what's coming. Obviously, when the laser technology came out, we went out and we bought our own laser system. We trained our guys on it. And I would rely back to the AI systems. Even without having orders in those fields, we're purchasing that equipment. We're setting up our training centers so that those training centers have that. I think that the younger talent enjoys that they can actually get some hands-on experience before they go out into the field. We try to do a lot of partnerships with employees to go out there. So if it's a younger person that's just leaving the technical field at school or college, right? That I feel they get a comfort knowing they're going to be paired up with someone before they're just kind of taken out there. Um, One of the balances with R&E is obviously we have a large manufacturing side along with our engineering side. So if that person is more suited for the manufacturing or needs some experience there, we're always welcome to bring them there. And then when they're done working there, if they want to go out in the field, we're always willing to cross that line on both sides. So that I think is what is developing our talent within R&E. Our AMP program is taken off again. We had a little hiatus after COVID, but now that's behind us. We started that in our Port Huron facility. We're going to soon start it in our South Carolina facility. So that's on the talent side.
Okay. So yeah, so basically say keep continuing developing the talent is say to, keep them to stay and then always continuing to learn is say or develop them as much as possible, which makes sense to say into, basically helping our customers as well. They say, and then also what would be like with that is say like what was like a memorable project or an event is say within R&E or success story that you would like to highlight about the company's capabilities to say when you were as R&E has grown, right? I say, I mean, obviously we have a lot of talented engineers, in controls, robotics, I say welding, I say maintenance and welders. I say that we can deploy anywhere. We have over 400 field service guys that we can deploy anywhere. What would you say a highlight of that is that what R&E can provide?
So we had it was an interesting project and something that was probably one of our biggest undertakings was, we had one of our tier ones call us and the OEM had them putting a new line in for a new program, which is the normal thing to do. But they made a last minute call that they wanted to continue the old project. Old product is 4 months longer, and they were a union shop. So with that being, they just can't hire and fire people. So they called us and they literally asked us if we would run their entire shop. So it was huge for us. We had to, we're not big in the operators, but we did find operators. We had to handle all the maintenance, all the PLC programming. It was MIG welding, so that was, special need there as well. They needed supervision, they needed MP&L, they needed quality, and we literally ran that entire shop very successfully for them for 4 months. And knock on wood, they're still a great customer with us. But I guess it kind of showed that we can run an entire plant.
Yeah, no, that's good. I remember that project too. So I was part of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people part of it.
yeah, I was a part of that one. It was a memorable project for sure.
It was exciting. I mean, it was exciting knowing that we didn't let the supplier down, and the OEM was happy at the end as well.
Yeah, say it also means like you kept that relationship and long lasting, with I guess you kept a great relationship with a customer and made it like long lasting. So how would you do that with like all the other customers? Obviously, you say like that's my part of the of R&E, say, and also the other sales guys as well. But how do you see that fit? Say in within R&E as as say the CEO is say making sure that obviously everything is getting done.
So, I try to really force the supervision to always reach out to the customers. As a matter of fact, we even did some internal training for all of our supervisors in sales, even though they're not salespeople, just so they could understand what the customers are looking for, how to fulfill their needs. I personally, we have our top 10 customers, which you're well aware of, that we always, keep in front of us that probably make up 40% of our work that, I personally go out and make sure we talk and meet with them, get their feedback. We've done multiple feedback sessions. It's hard to get feedback from customers, but the only time they like giving feedback is when things didn't go well, right? So
yeah, I always have to force that out. Yeah, I always have to force the hard part out. I'm like, hey, what is your pain point, right? I always have to ask that question, even though like they don't want to talk about it. So I know what you mean by that. Is say like it's really tough to have that conversation, but sometimes it's good insight for us.
And I would say, knowing that if you went over a 10 to 15 year span, our current customer base hasn't changed much. So that tells me we're doing something right with them. It's very little fluctuations, and you hate to go to the extreme, but knock on wood, RNE's never been in a lawsuit, so that's phenomenal, for poor workmanship or anything of that nature. I said that I probably jinxed myself now, but,
No.
you know, 5 years of not having any type of that situation, that shows a lot for everybody that works with RNE. We got quite the phenomenal team and extraordinarily proud of them.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good. What do you see? Where do you see R&E in like 5 to 10 years? Do you kind of still see it wrapped around that same concept of, those top 10 customers, or do you see it like kind of expanding out, into different areas? Obviously, we're adamantly trying to do that. I know that for a fact, but where's your thought process on that?
So we're continuing to diversify. That never stops. From the meetings I think even you've been in, I don't let anyone be concentrated more than 10% in any one customer, right? And that's all done by purpose. But we can grow those customers as long as we're growing the rest. We barely scratch the surface on fields outside of the automotive. I know that Amazon's been a phenomenal customer. They've been great to work with. I know that we're starting to approach some of the other systems like the Walmarts and the UPS, which is really great. We've entered into the appliance industry with Whirlpool, GE. We're getting into the tire and rubber industry now. And those are areas that are in the last 2 to 3 years, we've just started to scratch the surface on. So my goal is to continue growing that on the T&M side of the business, which is the engineering side. And what was really nice is prior to 2019, we did zero manufacturing. And since that time, obviously, we've grown that group to nearly 400 employees and 5 buildings. And now we're producing over 2,500 finished goods, which is phenomenal. So the diversification has hit both sides. At that point, there was zero in the manufacturing, and now we're almost balanced between manufacturing and engineering 50%.
Yeah.
Engineering, a little dip, manufacturer carries the weight. Manufacturing takes a little dip, hopefully engineering carries the weight. So it adds stability to the entire company.
Yeah. That's really good. And it also like gives, other, our engineers inspiration obviously to continue working and trying their best to continue. Hey, I need to perform on this side, or we need to do, accommodate, and they say, hey, we're going to bring you into the plan, or, whatnot. So it gives them a little more structure and stability too. So I guess what would you, give some advice to some entrepreneurs that looking to enter the automation space, or engineers looking to enter the automation space? But would you recommend going to be a contractor, or would you recommend like, hey, going to start at Ford Motor Company and then looking at it? I mean, I guess that would me. I personally, I went to the manufacturing side first. Tier 1, and then kind of went into the contracting side. What was your thought on that?
I think it's very important that you get on the manufacturing side before you go into the contract side. I think you need to understand how it is on that side of the business. So when you're serving them on the other side of the business, you have a well-rounded understanding. Without that, it's going to be difficult, right? Just going on your own right out of the gate, I think would be extraordinarily challenging and probably disappointing too, right? It's human nature, right? You always think you're right, and that's
Yeah,
not necessarily true.
yeah. No, it's kind of like you got to take the risk with the reward. They say, so what is your greatest reward for doing it? I mean, obviously growing from 2 employees to over 800, they say that's a huge accomplishment, right? And I'm glad to be a part of that. But what would you say the most rewarding part of having the automation company? Obviously, with bringing individuals on, to learn, and grow. Obviously, it's a lot of it sounds like it was a lot of work. And a lot of sacrifice to do. Which, I mean, I totally understand. Obviously, I've been in the field too. Working 12 hours a day. But what is your thoughts on that? I'm curious because obviously you started it, and I guarantee you had some 16, 17, 18-hour days.
I mean, reality, right? I had a controller that started with me when we were younger, and we had some 24-hour days. And I think anyone who's been at a buy-off has been there, and he could not physically understand how people could work 24 hours, and I said it wasn't always necessarily you're working the whole 24 hours, but you had to be there to make sure the line's running for 24 hours. So
Yep.
that's kind of funny, but what do I get? What's the satisfaction I get out of it is I really, 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 really enjoy when coworkers are learning, right? When they feel like they're getting things accomplished, like they like I enjoy when they come and tell me that, this is the best place I've ever worked at, right? I enjoy, like, if they're a PLC programmer and they want to learn robotics, they have that ability to cross train here. If they want to learn welding, right? So I'm really big into the learning aspect and developing, especially developing the younger people. So rewarding for me is when they say, Dan, this is the best place I ever worked at. That's the biggest reward of owning a business.
Yep. Yeah, well, I can tell you that. I say this is the best place I've ever worked. So, say I'll make sure that I tell you that for sure. um, but yeah, say so what else is RNE say doing is say like within the community and the industry at large to like help it is say as well. I know we have like our Drive Foundation is say, and we've been very adamant on supporting is say and helping the community is say. I know RNE is a huge part of that. Can you kind of give our listeners a little bit more about that too?
So we donate quite a bit of equipment to the high schools and to the colleges. It's nice that we get sponsorships to them there. We got quite involved with the First Robotics. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but that's teams that are building robots, and they go nationally and they compete against each other. And as a matter of fact, we sponsored 2 winning teams here last year, which was phenomenal. So that's a huge program, and we get to interact with the students when they come in and bring the programs and what they're looking to do. And then obviously, the foundation's really huge for us. So we started that about 5 years ago. We're going to be supporting about 500 children next year. That's real support for them too. We supplement food for them on the weekends. We help their special needs during the school year if they need supplies, if they need clothes, if they need even stuff for their home. And then obviously we do a huge Christmas thing where they actually get their wish list. And then next year we're developing into getting them into some sports and things like that for children who can't buy equipment to play the sports in that. We're having that all donated to us, and we're actually got some coaches that are donating time to help these children in that. So bringing up the younger generation to hopefully get into a technical part of the field or understand that there's things out there for them. That's our outreach to the community, and I think it's going quite well.
Yeah. It's kind of like your initiative, like basically to, for supporting through your business to say to support the Drive Foundation to help, support the community, which is also, showing that, hey, I also care because I've built this to say to create, an avenue to support other people to get them and get younger individuals involved or, schools involved in the automation space. Is that correct?
That's correct. And so what happens too with the Drive Foundation, it's we get a lot of young people from high school, even some from college, who donate their time to come and help us with that. And we've hired, some of them, right? They've come here, they've done the food packing and the Christmas with us, and they've shown interest in the business, and we've actually brought them on. So it's kind of a full circle thing. They get a little exposure to some automation while they're here, get a little understanding for it, and then even some of the people we've helped in the program, and I know it's been it's a very young program. They've come back and helped volunteer, which is great, right? So that's pretty phenomenal too.
Yeah, that's huge. It's huge for a community. You say when you grow a business like how RNE has grown is say and built is say over the 25 years that it's been in business. Is say it's huge when you're helping a community and supporting a community. Obviously, we have multiple locations. Is say 4 in Michigan. Is say 1 down here in South Carolina, and I think we kind of do a little bit of both in both areas. I'm definitely on the part of supporting the community. Say here in South Carolina. Say I'm very adamant on that as well. But yeah, I say that's always good. I say to it brings in talent, it excels the company, and it makes us they say we care. I say and we are utilizing what we have and what we've built. I say to grow, and I say if you need anything, obviously we're here to help. So yeah, I like that. I like that thought process as well.
And our organization, with the First Robotics, I think that we're sponsoring over 10 First Robotics right now, and some of them are just cash donations, and some are a little bit more on the technical. But the foundation itself, it's 100% volunteer, and it's 100% cash in, cash out. So there's no ulterior motives. There's none of that. It's just literally to help our community and to foster that and continue to grow. And from there, we've hooked up with other other foundations, and now we're, cross-pollinating, which is a great thing too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that. Well, Dan, I appreciate you taking the time. Do you have anything else for our listeners that you'd like to, inform them of? And also, any contact info that you'd like to share with them? If they have any questions or, anything that you would like them to reach out. Obviously, customers, if they're, viewing, they can always reach out to me, off LinkedIn.
Yeah, obviously, I'm on LinkedIn as well, and we're I'd like to maybe more for the younger generations, just kind of say that, not everybody has to go to college, right? And that seems to be the big push right now. And we need technical people. We need people in the field, and it's a good job. It's a great living, and I really wish that we could get more people on the technical side. That I think that's going to be a real challenge in the next 5 years, not just for our business, but for a lot of businesses. So
Yes, I definitely agree with that on that side, because for me, it's always been, I don't have a 4-year degree, and I'm like, hey, I didn't think I needed it, at the time, right? I always keep preaching that, to, the younger generation as well. I'm like, hey, there's avenues that you can go to, excel your career, by, becoming a programmer, or, a robot programmer or controls engineer or something like that. So yes, I definitely agree with you on that.
even through management, I mean,
Mm.
a good deal of our managers here don't have degrees, and they do very, very well, right? But they've come up from the field. I think every manager that works at RNE has been in the field. I don't know of any that have not. So just a little inspiration for those. Not everybody's made for college, and not everybody needs to go to college. I'm not saying college is a bad thing, because obviously it has its pluses, but I would really like to see some young talent take advantage of programs that we offer, and get into the field.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, today to, you know, I say go over this. Obviously, with our RNE Automated. This is Tech Talk with RNE Automated. I'm your host, Jordan Dieterle. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. And I appreciate it, Dan. Obviously, Dan is the owner of RNE Automated. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jordan. Appreciate it. You have a good one.